In over 3 decades, I've learned that truly great car dealerships are only great because of one thing: leadership. So I'm sitting down with the great men and women inspiring automotive on TimTalks, automotive leadership and beyond. Welcome, everyone, to yet another episode of TimTalks Leadership and Beyond. Wow, what an incredible kickoff to 2025 we've had. A lot of people wheels down, landing from what was started to be snowy NADA. Really excited about my guest today. We say that a lot, and you hear sometimes big names that are known throughout the space, and then you get to meet them, and then you get to meet the real them. So this person has become a close friend in a very short period of time. I had the privilege of spending some time with not only the people around him, but his entire team and his leadership and bringing his team together and what he's doing in his dealerships. The turnaround has been absolutely nothing short of phenomenal. So with that, welcome Tim Pohanka to Tim Talks. Thank you, brother.
Hey, I really, really appreciate the introduction and thank you for having me. I will say definitely hanging out with you over the last few weeks has definitely brought us together. And I don't know if it's just the name, but I definitely think it's been great.
Yeah, 100%. And it, what we're talking about, had the privilege, obviously, hopefully by now, if you've listened to any episode, in the beginning, we when we started this, I was like, well, maybe, obviously I'm one of the founders of Carnout, doing something. Everybody thought that I was just selling something or promote. Like, hopefully, by now that I'm truly trying to give back. We're truly trying to give back to the automotive community that's been so good to us. And there's no doubt that as I travel the country, I like to see, or it's amazing to see transformations in dealerships. But there's one thing, and that is leadership. And that was what I saw with Tim. So Tim, jump right into your story. Obviously Pohanka is a pretty well-known, extremely well-known name. In fact, I think isn't Jeff the vice chair of NADA, or did I get that wrong?
He's the recent past chairman of
NADA. So very well-respected name, but just dive in. There's a few key points that I saw that I want to get to, that I want to share with people. Hopefully we can help some dealers that are listening, but tell a little bit about of your story on how you got to the position of owning the multiple dealerships that you do now.
Well, one thing is, we're part of a dealer group that's over 100 years old, and that's something we're incredibly proud of. And it's something that all of us who are in the industry, we don't take lightly. You always respect the people that came before you. You respect what efforts were done to get you to where you are. And then you hold that as a very important level of trust that you now have to continue on with what others have built. And I think that's a real important point to make, is that we do feel like, we're not entitled to something. We're given the ability to take something forward. So it's a big difference between what a lot of people think. But personally, for me, my journey owning and operating our dealerships happened the day that Cash for Clunkers came out.
Was that 2008?
Yeah, and it was crazy. Moved down. I came from Fredericksburg, lived in the Fredericksburg area for a long period of time, but I moved up to run one of our Honda stores in the group, and an opportunity came up to come back to Fredericksburg and own and operate 2 stores at the time. And that was a Nissan store and a Hyundai store. Both a very interesting time for Nissan and Hyundai. And since then, we added another Nissan store. And since then, I've kind of, I've had the ability to work with my dad and my cousin and really push our dealership stores forward. And we're very proud of what we've done. And it wouldn't be there without the team that I have. And I can't say enough about all of the people back at the dealership who make everything possible. But I will tell you, Tim, it's funny you mentioned about give back. And one of the guiding principles that our group has always had is you've got to give back more to your community than you ever take out. You've got to give more to the industry than you ever take out. And I think that's kind of why we get along. I think we're aligned in that. That's been an overriding theme of our dealerships. And I think it shows in the type of people we have around us, like yourself, and what you're doing.
Yeah, it was pretty evident, what you're doing. In fact, I don't know if you can tell the story. Obviously, don't mention any names. But when you got to the store, I think it's, I love bringing the transformation leaders, the dealers. And I don't want to say it's easy, because it's not. When something is cranking and firing on all cylinders, and you have the biggest, market share in your PMA and all the other stuff, and then someone hands you the keys, there's still a lot to do, right? You got to keep all the plates spinning. But when you jumped into that store, there was some turmoil, even with, where it was, what was going on. Maybe explain a little bit about that and what you had to what was the first few things you did to roll up your sleeves to make a big difference in that store, those stores?
Well, when I first got into the stores, we had an OEM partner that was very adversarial, an OEM relationship that was adversarial. So much that one of the field representatives came in and kept explaining to me how we shouldn't be a dealer anymore. And I understood. I took it with a grain of salt about what he said, and politely, maybe not so politely, asked him to leave and told him to come back when he had something positive to say. And but what I decided to do at that point was let the past be in the past and really work on the future. And I rolled my sleeves up and told him that, hey, I don't want you to judge me on where you think we were in the past. We're going to judge on the future. And luckily, ran into some people at that manufacturer that started to buy into that process. They came and got, they knew my dad and they knew me. And they knew that we had the ability to do things different there together. I mean, this was the first time my dad, myself, and my cousin agreed to partner and work together. And that was really a beautiful thing. You really get to do that when you work with your dad and your cousin. You really have that extra added benefit that you want to not let them down.
Yeah.
The biggest things that we did is we started to look at our business holistically. And when you start to look at the things you know versus the thing you don't know, you really got to start with the things that you don't know. And at the time, I wasn't that good at service. And it took a lot to start to really learn how to move our service departments. And if anyone remembers what happened around Cash for Clunkers, that's also about the same time we had the OEMs going out of business or declaring bankruptcy. And we had a Cadillac franchise at the time, and Cadillac wanted that franchise to go to another dealer. And we didn't realize how much of a hurting it would be to lose that Cadillac business from our service and parts department. And it was like a hurricane that just came in and wiped everything out. And we really had to rebuild from there. And a lot of trial and error. But luckily, not to plug 20 groups, but ran into some amazing people at a 20 group and got a lot of lessons and really started to take those lessons and make changes and move the dealership forward.
No, it's amazing. And one of the reasons, and how long you have one general manager that I think you recruited her and she's over all three, correct me, but she has just done a phenomenal job as well. I think part of this is finding the right people and just letting them do what they do. Maybe explain, that's kind of a cool story on how that happened.
Yeah, it is about finding the right people, but it's also about finding the right people who will activate on the right processes.
Right.
And I met Pam through actually an interview where an employee recommendation. And we hit it off talking on the telephone when she was calling about a potential hire for the store she was at. And by the end of the conversation, we just swapped numbers and agreed to chit chat. And a couple of weeks later, she called back and said, "Hey, listen, I had a great time talking with you. I'd like to, if you ever have an opportunity, let me know in the future." And it just so happens that I had one, and we talked, and it's been an absolute game changer. Pam is very good at processes, enforcing processes, holding people accountable. And I think between the two of us, we've really been able to concentrate in different areas and really push the store forward. But again, it goes back to process.
Yep.
The three P's, obviously two of them being process and people. And without those, I don't think any business will have success if you can't get those two right.
100%. And I could, after meeting her, I just met her a couple of weeks ago for the first time, obviously extremely dynamic. You get to, and you're going to tell that your people respect her, but they also admire her, and they listen to her, and they care about her. So I think that's key. There's that special sauce as a leader. It's one thing to, hug you and, sing Kumbaya, but it's another thing. I think you achieve that level of leadership when people, when they don't, because sometimes, you might not hit, that person might not hit their number, right? And they go to that leader and say, I apologize that I let you down. It's funny that we think, sometimes that we can throw, spiffs and bonuses and all that stuff's good, but it's crazy to think the call after call and podcast after podcast, admiration, right? It's it's about relationships, but the love languages, right? One of them's admiration, and some people just want acknowledgement and loved on, and it was just really cool to see. Which brings me, I actually have the Greenbrier sweatshirt on. Tim does something unique out of the many dealers that we have. This is, in fact, it happened. The only other time it happened was this year, as a matter of fact. A little bit different. In fact, a lot different. But I thought it was extremely unique. It was very powerful. What Tim did is he brought in his key people from all of his dealerships. And then not only did he bring in the key people, and it was at the Greenbrier, which I had never had the pleasure to go to, and I am a raving fan. We could do 5 hours on why I love the Greenbrier. But Tim invested in his people, invested in his closest vendors, and brought them all to the Greenbrier. And nothing was off the table. Discussed everything. Each general manager, GSM, each service manager, they were held accountable. They showed where they were going, and then the uniqueness of that. And we talked a little bit after. And if I have the privilege to go next year, I think there may be a segment. But us as vendors. So let me take the podcast hat off and let me speak to vendors out there.
Real quick, Tim. Vendors is not the right name.
Partners. That's right.
Vendor partners. Let's be really clear. If anyone look,
people you had in the room, that room was partners. Absolutely.
Yeah. If you have vendors, then you have the wrong relationship. You have to have vendor partners because if they're not your partner, we both have to be after each other's success, not just one on the other.
And that was evident. That was clear when I saw that, because there was, and obviously don't have time to break down one or even all, but issues that they were trying to get better at. Obviously, as partners that supply either SaaS or some type of service to the dealer group, there's things that could help each other. For example, I think it's a great idea. Listen, dealer principal, listen, general manager, to have these partner meetings with your providers that help your websites go, and DR tool and chat tools go, and SEO and SEM go, and social media go. Great folks there at Blue Gorilla and others. But when you get into a room and say, hey, this is the problem they're trying to help. Hey, I can spin up a cue card. Hey, Blue Gorilla, can you put it on social? Hey, can you get together and work? I think that's huge because so often we're just trying to fight for attribution. We're trying to look good so there's no churn. But it is amazing what happens. I quote this all the time. I quoted it when you gave me the privilege to speak and hopefully encourage your team. But it's Woodrow Wilson, I believe, said, and I've quoted it here a bunch of times, but it's amazing what happens and what you can get done when no one cares who gets the credit. So I think that was extremely unique to find people in the same room that did not work for Pohanka, but truly wanted and were invested in your success of your dealerships. And then the sidebar conversations that we had to try to say, okay, I can do this. Well, that, those types of things, I think it was the first time I've ever seen that. So kudos to you for at least creating that environment.
The reason why that I feel that meeting is always successful is, as a partner, you need to know where our team is at, what they're thinking. What's the best DR tool? It's the one your team likes to use. Yep. But more importantly, if they don't understand the full functionality, or if you've got a process that can help them achieve a goal, whether it's a finance department, a service department, a parts department, there's always something in there that our partners can do to help take everything to the next level. And in today's business, it's all about marginal gain. How do you get 1% better? And if each department gets 1% better, guess what? Now you're 5%, you're 4 or 5% better. And then if they get better in their individual processes, again, that adds to that collective, improvement, and adds to everybody else. And I think that's what's really key about getting everyone together. I mean, and to touch on what you'd said, Tim, we bring our master service master technicians. Mm-hmm. So we want to hear what they have to say about what's going on in the shop. We don't want to just hear from the managers. We want to hear from the boots on the ground, the people who are really engaged in doing things. And when they're all together and they're all talking, and you're hearing how service interacts with the used car department, and the used car department interacts with the detail department, and the parts department interacts with the new car department, whether on accessories. When they're all talking in the same room, it eliminates all that noise, all the things that he said, she said, they said, whoever said, and you start to really get down back to the main point is improvement. Taking care of the customer, taking care of the team member, taking care of the dealership. And when you can start to get that energy in a room and everyone really talking about that, beautiful things happen. Every year that we've been doing this for 5 years, guarantee it, every year we've done it, we've recouped our investment for the entire event within the first 90 days. And that's a beautiful thing, because that means that the rest of the year, those improvements are just pure profit.
If you've spent 5 minutes inside a dealership, historically, obviously not in this dealership, probably not in any of the guests that we've had on, but historically, there's always that rub between sales and service, right? Mm-hmm. Well, so they did anything to roll the car across the curb and promise something, then they go to service and they're blown off and anytime we can break those walls down, anytime we can create that, because not only, I think, there were some significant others at that meeting. There were some kids at that meeting. And when you hang out with people's kids and significant others and they are invested, the closer you become, and it sets the tone at work. It's just not, somebody with a name tag that you see 9-10 hours a day. It's somebody that their kids, their wife, the struggles and praises and happy times. Like that changes the game. So kudos to you. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a pattern here, whether it's Kevin Deutsch at Butler Lexus, who meets with the entire staff and his variable meeting, everybody's in. So parts knows with service. Tim Pohanka just said the same thing, or Patrick. Like there is patterns here. Success leaves clues. So if anything else, I would encourage you to operate that way, because Tim brought out the financial statement. And so service understood parts, and parts understood service, and service understood sales. I mean, it was actually a pretty cool. What gave you the idea to do that? I mean, it was 5 years, but did you just say, hey, let's do something special? Like, take me 5 years back. What made you decide to do that? Because it is kind of out of the box, to go. I can understand a meeting, one day at a hotel, but you had a couple days to where there was, obviously the snow in West Virginia. There was ice skating and nice dinners and, tours of the bunker at the Greenbrier. All these things you mixed in with work, and it was freaking phenomenal. So what was the brainchild 5 years ago that made you decide to do that?
I just looked at what we do at our 20 group meetings,
Okay.
And when you go to a 20 group meeting, and you actually, I'll take you back further. When you go to 20 group meetings and you come back to the store, you've spent all this time looking at numbers and you're trying to hold your team accountable, and they've never seen it. They don't know what you're looking at. You're going to come back with all sorts of ideas and numbers. And I started to really think about it going, I need to get my team to understand the health of their department to the granular level that I see, so they can make decisions in their department. And that really kind of got to me. And I remember some leadership books that I read in the past that talked about accountability. If you don't measure it, you can't hold any people to it. And that kind of got me thinking, let's get everybody engaged. Let's let them looking at these financials. Let them look at these reports. I mean, why are people scared? When I look at what we compensate our team, I know our compensation is well in line with what people pay. So I shouldn't be afraid about that. And by the way, if our compensation was higher, I shouldn't be afraid about that either. When you look at productivity, when you look at all the individual granular things, if you want your people to run their department like a business, like they own it, they should know it. And that's what really got me thinking that. And then we did a few that were just that were local. And then I thought, you know what? I want to get them off site, because then I want them talking. Yeah. Because the best conversations,
that's exactly what happened. Yeah.
The best conversations aren't always in the meeting. They're going to be by the pool, or by at the restaurant. They're going to be walking around. Where absolute ideas populate. And that really became the crux of, let's get them out. Let's get them moving. And to your point about the spouses, if you don't want to thank the people who let their family members work with you most of their day, that's a mistake. You need to be grateful for the fact that there are families that they have. And so you want to celebrate that. So it really just started just as let them know the numbers. And then slowly we just started saying, look, we need to make it better. We need to be better. How do we get better? And then again, it goes back to the numbers. If you don't look at your numbers, you don't understand your numbers, you don't understand where your numbers are taking you, it doesn't matter. You're just taking you're swatting at it with a fly swatter, hoping you're going to hit something. And you need to have that strategic, these are the things we're going to look at. And that's really where it came from. And to my team, they have just taken to it like a duck to water. We ask them about their SWOT analysis. They actually think about their strengths, their weaknesses, their opportunities and threats. And that gets them thinking. And that part is important. And then we asked this year for moonshot ideas. And, a lot of people came up with some really big moonshot ideas. And that's them thinking about their future. And when you want to grow your business, you want people to be thinking about their future. And most people, I would hope, would want to keep their team with them. And we're very lucky. We've got a lot of people that have been with us for a long period of time. And that's because they've bought into what we're doing. And you mentioned earlier about Pam and the respect that they have for her. And I think the key part is she has respect for them, and she remembers that it's about them. If all of your team hits their goals, you'll hit your goal. Mm-hmm. And that's what this type of meeting does. It really gets the team together. They're making their goals. They're buying into what they're doing. And then you just sit back and do whatever you need to do to help them achieve that goal.
No, it was fascinating to watch. So, ladies and gentlemen, what an incredible idea. I would encourage all of you to think outside the box, to think about how you could, and I know there's different aspects, but what an incredible time. Tim, I always ask, because again, you went and, because I see, obviously we're partnered together with our tool. I see, our national average of conversion is about the same, and we're not going to get into our tool, but your close rates are higher than the rest. So I know, and I see even in our numbers that when you talk about process, when you talk about what's happening with the leads, I understand that you dive in. Let's talk about, and his name escapes me, but the superstar salesperson at Hyundai that you just promoted. The fact that you would do that with someone that may or may not have, GSM or GM experience, and it's just taken off. Tell a little bit of that story, because you took a shot, right? And he's just, I heard and I saw, what an incredible job that he's done. I believe it's your Hyundai store. Maybe tell a little bit of that story, just giving him room to just, get out of his way and allow him to do what he does. It's a pretty incredible story.
Well, the thought that you can't find a younger generation that wants to work is it's always interesting. But we've been blessed with quite a few, but Roman has really been an added, he's taken it to another level. Roman at a very young age when he started us, he was only 20 when he started with us. Just like any salesperson, didn't want to, wanted to sell the most cars he could with the least amount of time. And he got very good at a few things. Number one, he got very good at making sure everyone put his name in a Google review. Everybody. And then he got very good about doing social media, where everyone he sold a car to talked about their experience. Well, enough people were reading the Google reviews for the store. Enough people were seeing his social media posts. They just kept coming in and asking for him. Yeah. So he went from selling 15 cars to 20 cars to 25 cars to 40 cars a month. Mm. And then, lo and behold, we before COVID happened, we started really working with DR tools, and we bought into that. And Roman took to that like a duck to water also. And he started getting his customers to do it over the internet. So they would come in, their car purchased, everything done, and just come in and take delivery. Mm-hmm. Well, how much more time did that save him? How many more customers could he talk to when he's not spending 2 or 3 or 4 hours at the store? And then we said, hey, look, let's make him a sales manager, and we did. And we had a small problem, and we needed help in a GSM-ish level, and we brought him in. We said, look, we know you're not ready for it, but we're just going to go ahead and go for it. And he's been able to take his dedication, his processes, and helping his team do that, and sharing that knowledge. Success leaves clues. Obviously, teaching those clues helps, and he's developing a team around him that believe in that same approach. Hey, we're going to get our good Google reviews. We're going to have them mention you by name. You've got people coming in now looking for you. You've got those posts, and then more importantly, making it easy for the customer to do business. And that's really where it comes to point, is he's got processes that say, hey, look, we're not afraid to tell you your trade-in. We're not afraid to tell you your interest rate. We're not afraid to tell you the price of the car. And because we're not afraid to tell you those, we're not afraid to ask you to buy the car. And he does that whether it's in front of him, whether it's at home, or wherever they are, and is ready to give them the tools necessary to do that now. And that's really what the business needs. You need to focus on
guys. I'm telling you, I saw him. I saw the energy, but listen, I'm going to hone in. And whether you use, again, this has nothing to do with a pitch, but here's a statistic that is a fact, not a feeling. In 2018, 4% of the dealerships in the United States had a DR tool. In 2025, 90% of the dealerships have a DR tool. But the majority of dealers are using it like the field of dreams. If you build it, let me just flip it on my website and they would come. Roman is a beautiful example. No matter what you're using, this is no pitch. You know what? By the way, you know how much time we've saved? I can't remember, it was 118 minutes, but we've saved since 2018 to 2025, 15 minutes in the buying process. 15 minutes. The reason that Roman is dominating and doing what he's doing it because he is here's something that someone said on this podcast, and we'll land the plane. He's selling cars the way people want to buy them, not the way we want to sell them. Success leaves clues. I've seen it happen. It happens time and time and time again. Tim, I love you, brother. Thank you so much for giving us a few minutes. Just give a few thoughts. I mean, look, you went in You're an incredible operator. We've become buddies, not just because we're partners and we do business together, because I think you're genuinely a great human, but to that new GM, because you didn't take over a store that was netting $20 million, and here's the keys to the Ferrari. You had to build your process. You had to, what's one or two things that you could pour into that younger or new to the chair man or woman that's trying to make a difference in their dealership?
Well, I mean, in any dealership, the first thing I would say is you really need to get good at service. Service is what brings people back in. It's what keeps people there. When you look at what it costs to get a new customer versus retain a customer, it's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So really get in with service, get to know your service numbers, get to know how those work. But then, it goes back to process, accountability. Have your processes, have them laid out, but you have to end it with accountability. And accountability, I think a lot of people get scared on that word. They think that means you're the police officer, but you're not. You're just saying, these are our non-negotiables. This is what we do. And that's how we do it. And if you look at any, since the Super Bowl's coming up, if you look at any good sports team that's at a championship level, they're going to tell you it's about the attitude and the accountability. Do your job. This is what we do. This is how we do it. We talked about this in our meeting. There's a guy who left the Patriots after winning the MVP, went to another team, and 2 months later wanted out because he's like, no one here has that championship thought process. Mm-hmm. No one. They're just here to they're just here to collect a check. Mm-hmm. Well, that's because they're allowed to. Have that accountability. Hold people accountable to it. Put the good processes in, and let your team win. Those would be my 2 bits of advice: learn service, accountability, and process.
I love it, brother. Thank you so much for taking. I know you're covered up as you were just coming back for NADA 2, trying to keep our head above water. Cannot thank you enough, my dear friend Tim Pohanka. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for stopping by. We say it. We said it at the beginning of the show. We'll say it now. Listen. Problems come when we think we're the smartest cat in the room. Listen, I always say no one is smarter than everyone. Let's just continue to get better together. We'll see you next time.